Tell me something. Have you ever wondered which was the most beautiful, brutal, and desired muscle car of the 1980s? Those classic cars that defined an era, full of American power, wild design, and a roar that made the streets tremble. Today, I bring you a selection that is pure nostalgia, elegance, and timeless aggression. And if this kind of content excites you as much as it does me, don't forget to leave your like and subscribe to the channel. Because here, we live the history, the power, and the beauty of classic cars, like no one else does. Now, let's begin. 1987, Pontiac Firebird Trans Am GTA. Have you ever dreamed of being the star of a movie, driving a car that isn't just beautiful but seems to have a life of its own? Because what you're about to discover with this Trans Am GTA goes far beyond just a car. It's a true rolling legend, an icon that defined an entire generation. This isn't just any Firebird. We're talking about the GTA version, the most luxurious, powerful, and sophisticated of the entire lineup. A car that didn't just roar down the streets, but also conquered the big screen and the dreams of millions, especially thanks to its presence in the series Knight Rider, where, although the star was an earlier model, this GTA inherited the mystique, the aggressive silhouette, and that rebellious spirit that seemed to say to the world, "Here I am, look at me, hear me roar." But let's talk about what really matters, what beats under that long, sharp hood. This beast was equipped with a 5.7-liter V8 engine, known as the famous L98, delivering 210 horsepower and torque that made the pavement shake. Sure, today those numbers might not sound massive, but in the 1980s, with ever stricter regulations and increasingly tamed engines, this Firebird stood firm, defending the pure essence of the American muscle car. Its top speed reached 137 miles per hour, and it could accelerate from 0 to 60 miles per hour in just under 7 seconds. And yes, if you're wondering how much it would cost today to have a gem like this in your garage, get ready, because its current value in good condition can easily exceed $35,000 to $50,000, depending on originality and preservation. But let me tell you something. For a true muscle car lover, this isn't an expense. It's an investment in happiness, history, and pure automotive dopamine. But wait, here's a detail you probably didn't know. The GTA wasn't just about power and presence. It was one of the first cars in its class to include luxury features never before seen in a muscle car. WS6 performance suspension, 4-wheel disc brakes, something rare at that time, and an interior that felt more like an executive lounge than a sports car cockpit, all designed to deliver not just speed, but also comfort, elegance, and a style that simply never goes out of fashion. 1985, Chevrolet Camaro IROC-Z. Get ready, because now it's time to talk about a true beast that left its mark seared into the history of 1980s muscle cars. A car that didn't just look brutal, it had the performance and the attitude to back it up. Its name says it all. IROC stands for International Race of Champions, a competition where the best drivers in the world raced in identical cars to prove who was truly the best behind the wheel. And which car did they choose to represent that challenge? Exactly, the Camaro IROC-Z. This wasn't just marketing, it was a badge of honor. Wearing those letters on the body meant you were behind the wheel of a real champion. Visually, it was impossible to ignore. That low profile, the aggressive hood line, the air intakes, the side graphics proudly shouting IROC-Z, and those 5-spoke wheels that gave it an absolutely intimidating look. It was the car you'd see on the street and instantly know this wasn't just any Camaro. This was the Camaro. But of course, it wasn't all about looks. Under the hood beat a 5.0-liter V8 with electronic fuel injection, delivering 215 horsepower and enough torque to pin you to the seat the moment you touched the accelerator. Its top speed exceeded 140 miles per hour, and it could go from 0 to 60 miles per hour in around 6.9 seconds, numbers that in that decade positioned it as one of the undisputed kings of the road and the track. Now pay attention, because this is something very few people know. The IROC-Z wasn't just fast in a straight line. It was one of the first muscle cars to take aerodynamics and cornering seriously. It featured a specially tuned sport suspension, thicker stabilizer bars, and a chassis designed to prioritize high-speed stability. For the first time, a muscle car made you feel like you could be fast not just in a straight line, but also dance precisely through corners. And what's it worth today? Well, if you dare to look for one in well-preserved condition, you'll find prices ranging between $25,000 and $45,000. Though if you come across one in completely original condition with low mileage, don't be surprised if they ask much more, because this isn't just a car, it's a piece of American automotive culture. And here's a fact that will blow your mind. In the 1980s, the IROC-Z became so popular and so desired that it even temporarily displaced the Corvette in some sales rankings and among young enthusiasts. Why? Simple. It had the attitude, the look, and the power for half the price. 1987 Buick GNX. Picture yourself for a second standing on the corner of any avenue in the 1980s. Next to you, Mustangs, Camaros, and Corvettes drive by, all making noise, flaunting their presence, V8 engines roaring, and suddenly you see a black Buick Regal glide past, silent, understated, almost invisible. You look at it and think, it's just another fancy sedan. But my friend, you've just made the biggest mistake of your life. Because that is no ordinary Buick. It's the GNX, also known as the Grand National Experimental, a car that looked like it had been designed by a movie villain. Dark, mysterious, and absolutely lethal. Let me tell you how this beast was born. In the mid-1980s, while nearly every American manufacturer was cutting power, downsizing engines, and prioritizing efficiency under strict emissions regulations, Buick, yes, Buick, decided to go against the tide. And not just that. They did it in the wildest, most elegant way possible. The GNX was never meant to last. It was a clear message. We can build the fastest muscle car in America, and we'll do it just this once. Only 547 units were built, each with a numbered plaque, instantly turning it into a collector's dream. Its engine, a turbocharged 3.8-liter VS6, was completely reworked. McLaren performance, yes, the same McLaren that builds some of the fastest supercars in the world, collaborated on this project, optimizing the turbo, installing a more efficient intercooler, improving the exhaust system, and reinforcing the transmission. The result was a brutal 360 pound-feet of torque, which came on so early in the rev range, it felt like the car wanted to rip your organs out the moment you touched the accelerator. Do you know what made the GNX so special? It humiliated almost anything that dared to challenge it at a stoplight. In fact, in real-world tests of the era, it beat the C4 Corvette, the Ferrari 328, and even the Porsche 930 Turbo from 0 to 60 miles per hour, doing it in just 4.7 seconds. Something simply absurd for a sedan with a 4-speed automatic transmission. But it wasn't all straight-line speed. Buick also reinforced the rear suspension with a torque arm panhard bar setup, something never before seen in a traditional muscle car. This allowed all that power to translate into pure traction and savage acceleration instead of being wasted in pointless wheel spin. On the outside, the GNX was intimidating. No chrome, no ornaments, all black. Matte black, glossy black, black even on the wheels. The only thing breaking up that darkness was the front grille and the discreet badges that read G and X, like a subtle wink, only for those who knew what they were looking at. And yes, if you dream of owning one today, be prepared for more than just money. Prepare your soul, because getting a GNX is like hunting a unicorn. Its price easily exceeds $150,000, and some auction examples have sold for $250,000 or even more, depending on mileage and preservation. But listen to this. This car is so revered that in the United States there are entire clubs dedicated exclusively to the GNX, where the gatherings aren't just car meets. They're like black masses of speed, worshiping this creature of the night. Now look, if you've made it this far, it's because this car made you feel something. And I want you to tell me, do you also think this is the most feared and brutal muscle car of the 80s? Or is there another that in your heart holds that title? Leave me your opinion in the comments, because I promise you, reading each one is like firing up the engine of this passion we all share. And I'll throw you a challenge. If you could have this GNX in your garage today, but in exchange, you could never own another muscle car in your life, would you accept? Tell me. 1987 Dodge Daytona Shelby Z. Now get ready, because what I'm about to tell you about this car is the perfect blend of rebellion, innovation, and pure 80s beauty. Let me take you back to the context. It was the mid-1980s, and Dodge knew the world was changing. The traditional muscle cars were still alive, but there was a new generation starting to crave lighter, more aerodynamic, and, yes, more efficient sports coupes. And that's when they decided to team up with a true genius of speed, Carroll Shelby. If that name sounds familiar, it's because he's the same creator of the legendary Shelby Cobra and some of the wildest Mustangs ever built. And so, the Daytona Shelby Z was born. At first glance, this car was pure visual provocation. Its design was sharp, low, with a pointed front end, pop-up headlights that gave it that futuristic touch, and a rear end with a massive light bar stretching across the hatch. You looked at it and you knew you were in front of something special, something different. But where it really shattered expectations was under the hood. It came equipped with a 2.2-liter turbocharged four-cylinder engine, known as the Turbo 2, producing no less than 174 horsepower and 207 pound-feet of torque. You might think, just 4 cylinders? Yes, but this little warrior was capable of doing 0 to 60 miles per hour in 7.5 seconds and reaching a top speed of 134 miles per hour. Figures that put it head-to-head with much more expensive, prestigious European cars. And I'll tell you more. Thanks to its relatively low weight, balanced distribution, and the Shelby-tuned suspension, this car didn't just accelerate well. It was a joy to drive in the corners, something very few traditional muscle cars could proudly say at the time. Here's a fact that will blow your mind. This Daytona Shelby Z offered an optional limited slip differential, technology worthy of competition cars. Today, finding a well-preserved Daytona Shelby Z is like discovering hidden treasure. Its price varies quite a bit, but you can find examples between $12,000 and $25,000, though pristine, low-mileage units can command much more, especially if they have all the original Shelby packages intact. But there's something that makes this car even more special. It was one of the last projects Carroll Shelby worked on directly with Dodge before returning to collaborate with Ford in the 1990s. That means this isn't just another sporty coupe. It's part of the final legacy of one of the greatest names in automotive history. 1986 Chevrolet Monte Carlo SS. A car that at first glance looked like an elegant, almost harmless sedan, the kind your dad or grandpa might have driven, but hiding under its hood was the untamed soul of a true muscle car. Look closely. Its silhouette was classic, robust, with squared-off lines that perfectly reflected the pure essence of the decade. A long two-door sedan with a prominent trunk and an understated grille. But the most attentive eyes would catch the small details betraying its real nature, the perfectly integrated rear spoiler, the subtle yet defiant SS graphics, and that muscular bulge on the hood suggesting something dangerous was lurking underneath. And yes, behind that elegant appearance hidden engine, there was no joke. The 1986 Monte Carlo SS came with a 5.0-liter high-output V8, producing 180 horsepower and 240 pound-feet of torque. This car could accelerate from 0 to 60 miles per hour in about 7.8 seconds, with a top speed reaching 124 miles per hour. The most fascinating thing wasn't just its performance, but its story. This Monte Carlo SS was born out of necessity, not vanity. In the 1980s, Chevrolet needed to homologate a car that could seriously compete in NASCAR, the top American stock car racing series, and to do that, they had to build a street version that respected specific aerodynamic and design rules. That's how this disguised beast came to be, with a sharper front end and a body designed to slice through the air on the track. Here's a detail very few people know. The Monte Carlo SS didn't just have engine and aerodynamic upgrades. Its 4-speed automatic transmission was tuned with shorter gear ratios to maximize acceleration. It also came with a stiffer, reinforced suspension, upgraded brakes, and more precise steering, making this car not just fast in a straight line, but surprisingly capable on the road. And if you're wondering how much it costs today to have a gem like this in your garage, prices vary depending on condition and mileage, but a well-preserved Monte Carlo SS can fetch around $20,000 to $35,000. And some pristine examples, especially limited production models with special packages, can easily go far beyond that. And here's a fact that will blow your mind. In NASCAR itself, race-prepped versions of the Monte Carlo SS reached speeds over 200 miles per hour on superspeedways like Talladega and Daytona. Yes, that elegant sedan you saw parked on the corner was, in essence, the close cousin of a full-fledged race car. 1985, Dodge Shelby Charger. Do you really think that to be feared on the streets, you need a massive V8, a gigantic car, and tons of metal? If your answer is yes, my friend, this car is about to shatter everything you thought you knew. Because what you're about to discover is small, compact, and absolutely savage. The Shelby Charger was a true bullet on wheels, born to prove to the world that speed, agility, and attitude don't always come with 8 cylinders. The story is fascinating. Dodge, right in the middle of the decline of traditional muscle, decided to completely reinvent its philosophy and teamed up with none other than Carroll Shelby, the genius behind some of the most iconic sports cars in history. The result was a compact, sharp, lightweight coupe, and absolutely venomous. Under its hood beat a 2.2-liter turbocharged engine capable of generating 146 horsepower and 175 pound-feet of torque. That may not sound outrageous today, but you have to remember this car weighed just over 2,350 pounds. That meant every single horsepower worked with fury, propelling the Shelby Charger from 0 to 60 miles per hour in just 7.8 seconds, with a top speed of 121 miles per hour. But its magic wasn't just about acceleration. What truly made this little missile special was its guts. Recalibrated suspension, stiffened chassis, upgraded brakes and steering that made you feel connected to every inch of asphalt. It was pure dopamine behind the wheel. Visually, it was impossible to ignore. Shelby graphics on the sides, racing stripes, rear spoiler, hood vents, and exclusive wheels. Everything about it shouted that this wasn't just any Dodge. It was a true Shelby with racing DNA. Today, finding one in good condition is like stumbling upon hidden treasure. Prices range between $12,000 and $25,000, but trust me, every dollar buys you history, rebellion, and pure fun. And here's a badass fact few people know. Carroll Shelby was so satisfied with this project that he publicly declared it was one of the most fun cars he had ever created in his life. Not the fastest, but definitely one of the ones that could put the biggest smiles per mile. Now, I'm going to throw you a question that's not just any question. Be honest. If today you were standing face to face with this Dodge Shelby Charger and someone told you you can take it home, but in exchange, you must give up owning any V8 muscle car forever, would you accept? Leave it for me in the comments. I want to know. Are you on team more cylinders is better? Or team less weight, more agility, and more fun? Or 1983 Mercury Capri RS. Let me warn you, what you're about to discover is one of those secrets that only true automotive enthusiasts know. a car born in the shadow of a giant, but which, over time, became a cult gem. The sporty cousin of the Mustang, but with a more exclusive, more rebellious touch, and let's be honest, way more stylish. At first glance, you might think you're looking at a Mustang, and you wouldn't be entirely wrong. Both shared the same Fox body platform, but here's where things get really interesting. The Capri wasn't just a simple copy. It had its own personality, its own character, and most importantly, a design that made it stand out. Its rear end with the iconic bubble glass, the famous bubble back, its more muscular lines, and that subtle European flair turned it into something unique, something you couldn't ignore. But don't be fooled. Under that bodywork beat pure American blood. The 1983 Capri RS came equipped with a 5.0-liter V8 engine, producing 175 horsepower and 240 pound-feet of torque. Figures that back then were enough to plaster a grin across your face every time you stepped on the gas. Its top speed was about 124 miles per hour, and it could go from 0 to 60 miles per hour in just over 7.8 seconds. More than respectable numbers for a car in its class. And here's a fact that will blow your mind. While the Mustang was the car for those who followed trends, the Capri was the car for those who wanted to be different. Only a few understood its essence, its rarity, and its exclusivity. In fact, in 1983, the total production of the Capri RS was significantly lower than that of its Mustang sibling, making it today a true object of desire among collectors. Visually, the Capri RS had plenty of details that set it apart. The more aggressive front end, the hood scoops, the specific RS graphics, and of course that bubble glass rear hatch that made it instantly recognizable. And if you're wondering how much it costs to own one today, let me tell you, it's no easy task to find one. A well-preserved Capri RS can go for around $18,000 to $30,000, but units in completely original condition with low mileage can fetch considerably higher prices, because this isn't just a car. It's a rare and valuable piece of American automotive history. 1980, Pontiac Firebird Trans Am Turbo. Imagine the scene. It's the late 1970s. Emissions regulations, oil crises, and the pressure to reduce fuel consumption were slowly killing off traditional muscle cars. The big naturally aspirated V8 engines were no longer as viable as before. And that's when, right then, Pontiac did something that, for the time, was almost insane. Turbocharging a V8. Yes, you heard that right. This wasn't just any Firebird. Under its long, sharp hood lived a 4.9-liter V8 engine with a Garrett turbocharger, allowing it to produce 210 horsepower and about 330 pound-feet of torque. Those numbers might not sound monstrous today, but in 1980, when most muscle cars were struggling along with engines barely making 150 or 160 horsepower, this turbo Trans Am was simply a missile. Its 0 to 60 mile per hour acceleration was around 8.2 seconds, and its top speed reached 124 miles per hour, enough to leave most of its rivals in the dust, and do it with that raspy, throaty roar, punctuated by the whistle of the turbo that made the hair on the back of your neck stand up. Aesthetically, what can I say? It's possibly one of the most beautiful and aggressive Firebirds ever built. That enormous functional hood scoop with Turbo 4.9 proudly stamped on it, that giant screaming Phoenix decal spreading across the hood as if the car were ready to devour the highway, the gold snowflake wheels, the front splitter, and the rear spoiler completed an absolutely intimidating, unmistakable, and immortal look. But here's a fact few people know. The 1980 Pontiac Firebird Trans Am Turbo was the official pace car of the Indianapolis 500 that same year, which only added to its legend. And it was also the first and only Firebird to combine a turbo with a V8, a risky experiment that today is considered a true gem. And if you're thinking of owning one, well, consider yourself warned. It's no easy task. Its price hovers between $30,000 and $50,000, but models in original condition with the Indy Pace Car Edition package or very low mileage easily surpass $70,000. Because what you have here isn't just a car, it's a piece of cultural resistance, a declaration screaming to the world, I don't care what they say, I'm still a true muscle car. 1987 Ford Mustang GT. Get ready, because now we're going to talk about the comeback of a true legend, a car that marked the rebirth of an icon, the triumphant return of American horsepower to the streets after some very dark years. The 70s and early 80s were rough times for muscle cars. The oil crisis, environmental regulations, emissions restrictions. It seemed like the golden era of powerful V8s had been left behind. The early 80s Mustangs were timid shadows of what they once were. But then, in 1987, Ford decided enough was enough. It was time to get back to their roots, time to roar again. And oh, did they roar. The 1987 Mustang GT arrived with a bold redesign. Cleaner lines, more aggressive shapes, a sharper front end, and integrated headlights that gave it an absolutely intimidating presence. But what really mattered was under the hood. There lay the heart that would bring glory back to the world's most famous pony car, a 5.0-liter 5.8 known as the legendary 302 HO, capable of delivering 225 horsepower and a solid 300 pound-foot of torque. And trust me, these numbers weren't just for the spec sheet, because this Mustang could sprint from 0 to 60 miles per hour in just 6.4 seconds and reach a top speed of 140 miles per hour. Yes, finally. The Mustang was fast again, loud again, fun again, and above all, feared again. But here's the best part. This wasn't just a car that was fast in a straight line. The 1987 Mustang GT improved suspension significantly, with thicker sway bars, recalibrated shocks, and better brakes. That meant you could enjoy brutal launches and tackle a twisty back road with confidence, and a grin tattooed across your face. Visually, it was pure desire. Lower bumpers, side skirts, a rear spoiler, sporty wheels, and those iconic 5.0 badges on the fenders that were practically a warning to anyone daring to challenge you at a stoplight. Inside, it was simple but driver-focused. Sport seats, a 3-spoke steering wheel, and an instrument cluster that spoke straight to your soul. And if you're wondering how much it costs to relive that glory today, prices range between $20,000 and $35,000, though the best preserved examples, especially manual transmission cars with low mileage, can fetch significantly higher figures. Because this isn't just any Mustang. This is the Mustang that saved the legacy. Here's a killer fact. This Mustang GT was so well received that it almost single-handedly rescued the entire pony car segment from oblivion. Without it, the Mustang probably wouldn't have survived to see the 90s. 1986 Pontiac Grand Prix 2+2. In the mid-1980s, NASCAR had become a true laboratory of speed, and Pontiac, watching how their rivals, especially Chevrolet with the Monte Carlo SS Aero Coupe, were starting to gain an edge with more aerodynamic designs, knew they couldn't be left behind. The solution was radical. Develop a street-homologated version that would allow them to take a modified Grand Prix to the track, faster and with better high-speed performance, and that's how the Pontiac Grand Prix 2+2 was born. Only 1,225 units were produced, making it a true collector's gem today. At first glance, it was impossible to ignore. A completely redesigned rear end with a massive bubble-style curved back glass to improve airflow, a longer and sharper front fascia, and an aggressive front splitter that made the car literally slice through the air. But let's talk about what was beating under the hood. This car came with a 5.0-liter V8 engine that delivered 165 horsepower and about 240 pound-feet of torque. On paper, that might not sound outrageous, but remember, this car wasn't designed for stoplight drag races. Its true power was unleashed on the track, where aerodynamics and stability over 140 miles per hour made all the difference. On the road, it reached a top speed of 120 miles per hour and did 0 to 60 miles per hour in about 9 seconds, showing it was more about endurance than explosiveness. But honestly, when you saw it go by with that low profile, that bubble rear glass, and those racing-inspired lines, you knew you were looking at something completely out of the ordinary. Visually, it was simply spectacular. The 2+2 side graphics, the perfectly integrated rear spoiler, the unique wheels, and that curved rear window made it absolutely one of a kind. In fact, that rear glass was manufactured exclusively for this model and was never again used on any other Pontiac. And here's a fact that's going to blow your mind. This car was designed solely to meet NASCAR homologation rules, which required at least 1,000 units to be sold to the public so the aerodynamic modifications could be legal in racing. In other words, this car was born because speed demanded it. Today, finding a Pontiac Grand Prix 2+2 in good condition is extremely difficult. Its price ranges between $25,000 and $40,000, though examples with low mileage and fully original specs can easily surpass $50,000 precisely because of their rarity and historical significance in American motorsports. And there you have it, a true collection of the most brutal, beautiful, and wild muscle cars that the glorious 1980s gave us. Cars that are not just machines, they're pieces of history, dreams on wheels, and symbols of an era that will never come back. But now, I want to know something only you can answer. Out of this entire list, which one of these muscle cars stole your heart? Which one would have a reserved spot in your garage forever? Drop it in the comments, because trust me, if you've made it this far, it's because the passion for classics runs through your veins just like it does in mine. And I invite you right now to check out another video you simply can't miss. The most beautiful American cars of the 1980s. I promise. It's pure beauty, pure nostalgia, and it's going to make you fall in love. See you there.